Hi, beautiful souls, it's Serena. I'm back. So I'm going to carry on with day 3 of the 31 days of Tarot 2019. And again, each time I post these videos, I will have a link to Anthony's original list of questions for the 31 days. In this video, I'll go through questions 3, which is the top 5 oracle decks that were either published or came into my hands in 2018, the top 5 tarot books, and the card that stopped me in 2018. So let's start with the oracle decks, and this was really challenging. I'd say this was even more challenging than the choosing the top 5 tarot decks for 2018. I think the reason for this was that I worked with a lot of oracle decks. I taught quite a few workshops on reading oracle cards, so I expanded my collection quite a bit and spent quite a bit of time with more decks. And so this is super difficult. So I may sneak in an extra one just because. The first deck that I'm going to, and I don't know if any of these were published in 2018. I don't think any of them were, but they all came into my collection in 2018. So starting with the Connected and Free Alchemist Tarot. And I have to say that I like this Oracle deck better than the Tarot deck, and that I often use this deck with other tarot decks, not just with its corresponding tarot deck, and I will tell you why. The keywords in this deck do really match the artwork, and they're very easy to work with. It's really easy to go off into a story, into an experience with each of these cards. And I really find that is the gift of this deck, is to go off into an experience. So for example, this one, which looks like it's a dried up field. There's a path going through to the blue sky, right? So, and the keyword is beginnings. And so here we are kind of trudging through trudging through the ending to get to the beginning. And I don't know, I think it's brilliant. I think there are so many beautiful and powerful cards in this deck. Okay, so there's some really soft ones. So this is heart, and we have a bear. And the possibilities of, what do I want to say? The possibilities of going in multiple directions with these cards are fairly easy. So like the beginnings one. So this one's called the final step. And so sometimes we just need, that the incentive just to cross that T and just to finish that project off. This owl card is just beautiful. And you do get a lot of owl cards, a lot of wisdom cards in oracle decks. That's fairly common. Here's resistance. Yeah. I highly recommend this deck. I have bought a second copy from a different printing, which I haven't opened. I may gift it to someone, but I do have 2 copies of this deck because I love it so much. And oddly, another deck that I'm going to show you today, I also have a second copy of as well too. So this is called Soul Knowing. I do not refer to the guidebook for this deck at all. And it is spot on. So if you are using this deck as a secondary deck with Like if you're doing a tarot card reading, it works brilliantly. This is such a nice card. If you're familiar with the 5 of Clouds in the Osho Zen Tarot, this is such a more gentle way of kind of getting the same message across, right? You know, be easier on yourself. Decisions. Okay, so that is the, sorry, sometimes I'm not very good with names, the Connected and Free Tarot, and that's by Lauren Aletta. And again, I will link the source, where you can buy all these decks, and in the description box below. I'm going to save my favorite for last. Now this is a deck. This is actually 3 decks. I have it in this green velvet pouch here. And this is my collection of the Oracle of Oddities. This is a deck that I definitely need to work more with. I'm going to put my glasses on because some of these are quite difficult. This is a brilliant deck, whether you have one or all 3 of them. The keywords are thought-provoking. The anatomy aspect of it is thought-provoking. So trying to find the connection between the keyword and the body part that's represented on the card, and if there's medicine in the botany as well too. It's just, it's one of those decks that really kind of gives you pause. Let's say that. And I don't tend to use this deck with other cards. I use it in isolation for single draws. Sometimes I use it in courses. Deception. And most of these are spot on. So you can see the keyword is connected very much to the anatomy. And if you don't know anything about the botany, you can use the colors, or you can do research on the botany or the animals. Some of them have animals in them as well too. So I really like this deck. I know that some people don't like to have all 3 decks together because they found that it's too many cards. I did remove the chakra cards, so I've put those away because I wanted to keep this deck very much about the anatomy and finding the connection between the keywords, the anatomy, and the botany. Now these decks are out of print, but I was able to source them. So I think it was Oracle of Oddities 2. I've easily found it on Kijiji or eBay or somewhere, and it was the same price as it would have been if I'd bought it as an original. It was not, it was not overpriced. And the other 2 I found through a shop, and I will put the link to that shop. It was in the US. Not cheap, but it was great to get all 3 of those together. So the third one is the Sacred Earth Oracle. And this is a deck that I've been using frequently with clients, with other tarot decks. And again, this is, if you saw my previous video, it's very watercolory. It's a soft looking deck, and you can really use your intuition with this. It tends to deliver a very potent message. And often the messages that I get from this deck are quite different from the guidebook. So if I'm working doing a professional reading, then I'm usually not using the guidebook. Sometimes on my own, I will pull out the guidebook, which is very well written. So there's stretch and surface. The keywords, it goes really, really well if you're doing any kind of chakra work, if you're studying and working with that. Hmm. I find it, that's on the box, expectation. Yeah. It's just a brilliant, brilliant deck. It works well with all ages of people. It works equally well with men and women, even though it appears to be a very feminine deck. And you can tell I use it all the time because the cards are all mixed up. And I find that some of the cards I need to talk quite, like I can go in really in depth with, especially if it hits the nail on the head as a summary for a tarot reading that I've done. So lots of women in this deck. Here's a man. Reaction. I'll just see if I can find another card with a man on it for you. If that is the criticism of this deck, that would be the only thing that there's, it's not balanced that way. Fortitude. Hi, baby. There you go. It's a young man. Perception. Okay. And there are some more androgynous looking figures as well too. So yeah, I'll show you one more just because I can. Okay, so there's one. Efficiency. Yeah. So again, that is the Sacred Earth Oracle. The content is written by, I'm just going to pause for a second. There are two writers of the guidebook. So Tony Carmine Salerno is one of the writers of the guidebook. And then there's the artist. And so there's this beautiful collaboration of the three to put this deck together. You would not be disappointed with this deck. It's really special. Okay, so that's number 3. And then I have 4, 5, 6 here, so I don't know where to go next. I'm going to go with Oracle of Echoes, Anna Turian's Oracle deck. This comes with a PDF guidebook, which I did print, and I had it bound. But unfortunately, I don't actually ever go to it just because I find I don't need to. The cards are really self-explanatory. And you can go, again, just like the previous deck, you can go in multiple directions with the cards. Very much in my style of cards, so the watercolors. And I find for the most part, the keywords are really useful on this deck. So here we have breakthrough. You know, some decks, it's like you just, the picture speaks louder than the words. Well, this deck, they work equally well. But it's really important, I find, that you trust what you need to do in that particular reading. So if the picture is calling to you, to really go with the image and just leave the keyword. But sometimes the keyword is important. So that is a very personal thing. These are super powerful cards. We've seen a lot of reds come up in this first few cards I've shown you, but there are other colorations as well too. Okay. So New Horizons, isn't that beautiful? So here's an example of a card that came up in a reading the other day, and it was just about the hug. The client really needed a hug. The client really needed to give herself permission to be held. She was just being too strong, thinking that she had to do everything on her own. And I was trying to get this message through. And then in the end, she pulled this oracle card. And it was exactly what I'd been saying, that it was time for her to give herself permission to be held. And so it was just perfect. Sorry about that. My dog really needs to go for a walk, but I'm going to finish this second video. So I can't say anything bad about this deck. It has, if you're looking for a balance of, you know, more challenging cards and softer cards, it has that. And the more challenging cards speak loudly. The soft cards speak gently. Like here's the Courage card. Isn't that stunning? Yeah. So that is a deck that I go to all the time. It's always in my basket. I take it with me. It comes in this tuck box, which is wearing out. So I will need to either make a box or a bag for this. I've had it for quite a while. And like I said, this was the deck that I did purchase a second copy of. And I'm going to try to make sure I always have a backup copy of this deck because I just love it. And if it were not so expensive, I would gift it to people all the time. I think it's just a brilliant, brilliant deck. Okay, so now I have two more choices, and I have one more Oracle deck to share with you, and I have two in front of me, and I don't know which one to pick. And so I'm going to go with the Head Witch. I did a walkthrough of this on my YouTube channel. Comes in a magnetic box. So this is Ciolo Thompson's Oracle deck. I talked about Line Strider in my top 5 tarot decks of 2018, and this came out in 2018. And if you have other plant oracle decks, this one definitely rocks. It is the most beautiful guidebook. It has all kinds of alchemical information. It talks about the medicine of the plants, the alchemy, so blending and mixing, creating things. Look at that. The mouse with the morel mushroom. I need to spend more time with this deck, but it is by far my favorite plant deck. I'm so glad that I got it. That's the backs. And these are the cards. And so you can use it in multiple ways. You can use it as the medicine of the plant. You can use it with the keyword. And if you have other plant oracle decks, there is a crossover with some of the plants and the keywords. Some of them, they don't align. So that's definitely a video that would be worth doing, is to look at plant-based oracle decks, the same plants, and look at the different keywords that were chosen and why they were chosen. Yeah, enjoy for the strawberry. Again, a deck, if you like decks with white space, this is what you get here. So we have the dogwood for defend. The dogwood is the flower of British Columbia in Canada. It is, where I live, it's easy to find in the spring. It's just a beautiful, beautiful flower. And it is very vulnerable. So it is, it's actually surprisingly difficult to keep a dogwood. And I need to look in the guidebook why she chose defend. But yeah, this is a deck I'm going to be working a lot with in 2019. I'll talk more about that because I think that's one of the questions, decks you're going to be working more with. Mostly for my own education. This is not druid based like some of the other plant oracles. These are very much plants that you can find today. And so some of the names will be a little bit different. For example, yeah. So when I'm actually going to do that, I'm going to take out the plant base decks and look at how the different names across the same plant are used as well too. One of the names that comes out, kinnikinnick, so that's a very common name for a particular plant in this area. And the first time I looked at the card, that was not the name used, and then I had to look it up and refer to it and stuff like that. So I find working with plant-based oracle decks is, for me, it's a huge education thing. So those are the 5 top oracle decks. Amazing, amazing decks. And yeah, can't say enough about them. So the next question is tarot books. And I'm not going to go as long into the tarot books, but I did want to share them with you. And I'll just reach over here to get them. Now, some of these are separate tarot books, and some of these are guidebooks that really kind of rock my soul. I'm going to start with the biggest one first. So this is the Deviant Moon Tarot book. This is the big hardcover book. This is a very, very special book, and if you love books, you would absolutely enjoy this book. And it's been, what do I want to say? It's been a great help in getting to know the Deviant Moon Tarot, to understand Patrick's backstory, to understand the evolution of some of the cards. So let's just have a look here. So for the Fool card, we have the story of the Fool, and then he goes back and talks about the evolution of the card and how the card came into be. So a lot of these cards have been through a lot of changes, and that's all documented here in the book. And if you love art, you're going to love this book. And there's also some of his other artwork here. He's been drawing for a long, long time. I can't say enough about this book, right? So again, this is an education, and yeah, it's an expensive book, but so worth the investment, as opposed to some other big hardcover tarot books that I've purchased that were not, which I shall not mention here in this video. This is the Tarot for the Green Witch. So this is by Anne Mora, the author of the Green Witch Tarot. But this is a different book than the book that comes inside the Green Witch Tarot. So this is a really good reference book. She uses lots of different tarot cards as examples. So here we've got the Robin Wood Tarot, and it's not just about the Green Witch Tarot. So actually there's lots of pictures of Robin Wood here, and I'm guessing these are all Llewellyn decks that are pictured in here. One of the highlights of this book is towards the back. So at the back here, I don't know if you can see, she's got combinations, 2-card combinations, and her interpretation of what the 2-card combinations mean. And that she has that for every single suit and every single combination. And then after that, it's actually it's brilliant. Sorry, I'm going to go to the table of contents just so you can get an idea. I read this book quite a while ago, earlier this year. All right, so we have a chapter for each of the minors and the majors, of course. And then we have a chapter for each of the relationships. So like that list I showed you. So we have pentacle relationships, sword relationships, wand and cup relationships. And then chapter 13 is major arcana relationships. So she's got lists of when you get major arcana cards in pairings. And then exercises, keys, and records. So chapter 13 and chapter 14, which is where I wanted to go. Just bear with me here. All right. So as you go through, so for example, on the last page here, by the time we get to the end, we've already been through all the pairings as other cards have come up. So for 19, the sun, the last pairings are the world tree and 19. So happy conclusion, achievement, success, emphasized, and contentment. But at the beginning, so you can see when we have like the devil card. So we have the devil with each of the other majors. And so it's just a really nice way to review if you're doing a little bit of studying, if you're doing some journaling. It's an awesome reference. Yeah, and some different charts. And there's also spaces for you to do some writing. So a bit of a workbook, but yeah, and then here more space for you to do some journaling and recording. And then at the end, she's got some spreads. So yeah, this is a really excellent book. Tarot for the Green Witch, which is different from the book that comes in the Green Witch Tarot. So the next one is the Tarot of Trees. And I believe I ordered this separately from the tarot deck. This does not come with the tarot deck, the Tarot of Trees. And the reason this is a beautiful book, the reason I've got this on the list here is not just because it is a beautiful book, but I'm going to pick one for you. So let's read the High Priestess. I find this is a bit like the Chamonette that I shared with you earlier. And if you were to use this deck as an oracle deck with the Chamonette, or you were to use the Chamonette as an oracle deck with this tarot deck, they would look brilliant together because just of the way they are drawn. So this is by Dana O'Driscoll. The High Priestess is a willow that sits upon a crescent moon framed by twin pillars, black and white. The sacred mysteries unfold around her. In her roots, she holds pomegranates, a fruit associated with Persephone and the underworld. Will you eat of the fruit? The High Priestess is a wise mentor, spiritual teacher, or spirit guide, a wise woman who opens the door to unknown mysteries, but often allows you to wander a bit to find your own path. She is a person in touch with the spiritual realm and someone who knows without knowing. The moon indicates her ability to illuminate what you might not otherwise see, the path to secret knowledge. The situation at hand may call for substantial mental energies or intuition. She also symbolizes contemplation, silence, calmness, patience, mystery, discretion. While the Magician is about revealing and positive energies, the High Priestess, in his opposite, embraces receptivity and hidden mysteries. So this is an awesome book for beginners. Even though this is about a tarot of the trees, the descriptions are really, really helpful. Okay, and then at the beginning of this book, there is a really nice introduction. I highly, highly recommend this book, whether you were to purchase the deck or not. And I believe this is a self-published deck. So yeah, so that's Tarot of the Trees. Sorry, these glasses are old. They're falling off, and I don't know whether to have them on or have them off. Okay, I bought Tom Benjamin's book. I've started, not very far, you can see, to go through it. This is called Tarot on Earth. And I am new to pip decks. And so that was my motivation for buying this book, because it is a very much a workbook, very practical book. Tom has created exercises in each of the chapters. So here's one on the elements. And then there is space, or you could use your own journal. But there's space in each. Actually, no, I think a lot of them you're going to have to use your journal. But in some of the chapters, there's actually space in the book to complete the exercises or to record. But as I go through this, I'm definitely going to be using my journal, and it will, because I didn't want to write all through this book, but I might do that. I think that's one of the things he said early in the book was write all over this book, make a mess of it, use it, make it dirty. It was intended to be a very practical book for people getting to know the Marseille style, to become more familiar with pip decks. And it was not expensive, so I think it's $20 US, so it means it would be cheaper on Amazon. So a really practical book to have. And I just wanted to include a Barbara Moore guidebook. So I don't know if you have any, you probably all do, but if you do not have any decks in your collection with a guidebook from Barbara Moore, it is so worth having the deck just for the guidebook. She is a brilliant guidebook author. And I don't use the Steampunk Tarot often because I do a lot of my readings in a dim room. It's a dark deck, and I'm not super familiar with the images, and so sometimes it's hard to pick up on the subtlety of the cards. But this is, I don't know, I really appreciate the perception, her perceptions, and I'm going to read to you this one. So this is the 9 of Wands. So either the card of, coming through the battle, a little battle worn. It can be a card, a little bit of defensiveness, card of exhaustion as well too. But it's also a card. It's also, for me, very much a time to, pat yourself on the back. You've come a long way. You've worked really, really hard, and now you may just need to kind of step back. So let's hear what Barbara has to say. There's a quote for each card, and it says, "We'll have just enough time to batten down the hatches before the storm hits." Core meaning, preparing for the next challenge. So stepping back, we're not quite at the end. We're not at the 10 yet. And in this deck, there's a lot of machines and people. So this is the Steampunk Tarot. I'm going to skip through and just read this from here. "Our friend is certainly experienced. Having been through many battles, he knows how to spot an oncoming attack, how to fight well, and how to survive in dire circumstances. He is something of a magician, repairing machines with spit and determination. He will always be ready to take the last stand and likely survive to take the next last stand. Sometimes, if the situation warrants, it is wise to be ready for an attack or be willing to be able to fight to the last breath. We saw this in the 7 of Wands. Does this beguiling rough warrior, though, live too much in suspicion and paranoia, seeing attackers and danger where there are none? Has his passion for survival squelched his will to live?" So in her descriptions, not only does she give a description, she gives references to other cards, and she asks lots of really good inquiring questions. So that is why I included this book here. Yeah, can't say enough about her guidebooks. Also, if you have trouble with court cards, she has really helpful information about looking at the quartz and how to read the quartz. So those are my 5 tarot books, and I'm just going to squeeze in the next question, which is the card that stalked you in 2018. And for me, it was the 10 of Swords. And not because it showed up in a lot of personal readings, but because it was a card that I had a lot of questions that I wanted to uncover. One of my questions about the 10 of Swords is, and I wonder if I picked one that depicted this. Here's one. Okay, so this is from the Dreaming Way Tarot. This has been trimmed. My question is, why does the person have a blanket or some kind of cover over them, and then the swords go through the back after that? So if this is if they've actually been pierced by the swords, did the person who pierced them with swords actually stop, cover them up, and then put the swords through them? That's something that really bugs me about this card, and I've been trying to uncover that mystery. The other thing is that often the swords are pierced through the body from the base of the spine through to the back of the neck. I mean, not in all decks. Here's the Deviant Moon one. And so when these swords are along the spine and they're piercing from the root chakra through, I guess, through the throat chakra, sometimes right into the brain, so through the 6th chakra, are these actually, could they be read as kind of final piercing through the energy of each of these chakras? Is it meant kind of like as a purification? Like, is there a different way we could look at this card? I have been asking all these kinds of questions, trying to unravel this card on a deeper level. It is the suit of swords. It's a suit of air. It's about communication, about choosing your words carefully. So why is there death at the end of this? This is meant to be the mastery of the suit, the completion of the suit. You've learned your lesson. You've learned to be more careful with your words. You've learned to be more eloquent with your words. You've learned to refine your communication skills. So why, if you've learned to refine your communication skills, are you face down on the ground with 10 swords in your back, right? Why is this that? So that's another one of the questions that I'm working with. I think it's brilliant when the decks, so this is textured tarot, take a different viewpoint. So here we are folded over the desk, and the swords are more ethereal. And then here we have Tarot of the Hidden Realm. So it's almost like, this is the, I don't know, I want to say battle charge. It's the end of the battle. But here we have green. So green represents the heart chakra, and the swords are piercing through the green cloth. So that's very 3 of sword-ish, right? But here we have the 10. And then this one, so this is Wheel of the Year Tarot. And so the swords are just kind of outside, and we have somebody at a graveyard contemplating the person that has passed. Here's Tarot of the Trees. So the trees have pierced the tree, much like they would if it were a person, and blood is being spilled from the tree. And here's Crystal Visions Tarot. And often in this card, we see that there is light, there is positivity in the distance, but this is an acknowledgement of the end. So my next question is, we have the suit of air, which is about communication. It's also can be about higher thought. It can be about air representing, so usually this is associated with air is ether, right? Air is mind, so we go there as well too. But air is the element of the heart chakra. So we need to draw in the connections between not only throat, which is ether, but we need to draw in the element of air from the heart and the connections between heart and throat. So this card has been giving me more pause than any other card that has been coming up, especially when it comes up in a reading where things are very kind of messy and sticky. And what exactly does this ending represent? If it is an ending, or is it more of a purification? Is it an awakening? So that is the card that has been haunting me. And what do you think? Like, do you have, oh, here's another one. So here's the 10 of Themes from the Green Witch Tarot. So here the swords are around the outside. It's like they are, they're a protection. And the animals are not coming through the circle of swords that have been drawn here. So, that's a completely different kind of situation, but it's really important as a reader to know all these things. It's not just an ending. It's not just a difficult ending. I find there's so much more to this card, and it's one of the ones that I will continue to investigate personally as a reader and just as a passionate card collector. So thank you for being here and listening to this. I love to hear your questions and your comments. So type away and subscribe and stay in touch. Namaste.